welcome back to everyone who's tuning into the 2025 edition of the A4Q Testing Summit. I am very privileged to have with me the very dear and very experienced Gitte Ottosen from Denmark. Hello, Gitte.
Hi.
Gitte, a tiny little bit of an introduction, but I'm going to hand over to you to talk all about yourself. Gitte, you've been in this business for a little while, so you've got a few tales to tell and a few things to share with the audience, I know. Gitte, you're from Gitte Quality, based in Denmark, and you're accredited ISTQB and TMAP trainer, but most of all you're practicing tester as well, so lots of good insight here. Just for the audience, if you do have questions and you want to ask them during the live session, please put them in the comments box and we'll try to get Gitte to answer those. And please remember that we do always have the vote for the best speaker, best presentation at the end of the A4Q Summit. So you can go to Gitte's page on the A4Q Summit site and you can vote there. So Gitte, I'm going to get off stage and hand over to you, and I'm looking forward to this very much. All about the quality coach role, which I know is going to interest a lot of people. So over to you.
So quality coaching. I called it a true Swiss Army knife, and why that name? So I think our role is changing as always, and we need to have a broader and broader set of competences to support our teams, support our projects, and that's what I'll be diving into in this presentation. As said, my name is Gitte Ottosen, and I do have a few years behind me in testing. Actually, I have just here back on May 1st, I had my 30 years anniversary in testing. So I've been through waterfall, through agile, through safe, and all the different roles from being a tester, test architect, test manager, and so forth. And now I'm so privileged to be a co-owner in a small testing consultancy called Gitte Quality. Enough about me. Let's dive into important stuff. Why do I even want to talk about quality coaching? If you look at the Agile principles, so these lies beneath the set of our Agile, the value definition, you know, the one with individuals' interactions over processes and tools, those 4 lines. We have 12 principles that talks about what is good Agile development, what is good Agile delivery. And I would like to point your attention to 3 of them. The first one says that our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. The third one talks about delivering working software frequently. And the last one talking about working software being the primary measure of progress. Being the primary measure of progress. So that's the first step to why is it I want to talk about quality coaching. Because one of the things that I've noticed over the last years is that some roles are maybe not disappearing completely, but to some extent. The role of the test manager actually started, the debate around that role started already when we started working with Agile back in the days, saying, oh, but we are Agile. We don't need a test manager. We don't need a manager in Agile. Focusing entirely on each individual team and talking about the responsibility of the team. So in some organizations, the test manager has disappeared. Over the last years, I also noticed that a lot of places, the role as a tester starts disappearing. And why is that? I think some of this is a bit of a misunderstanding, because some interpretations in the Agile community says that we have an Agile team, which is a cross-functional team. And that team should be able to do coding, testing, or first of all, of course, analyzing our foundation, designing the right solution, then code, test, integrate, and deploy. And since the Scrum guide calls them the development team, we only need developers in the Agile team, and they will then have the responsibility for everything. But the thing is, what we're working on right now is to give our Agile teams what Comic Agile calls team cognitive overload. because we are asking the team to take complete responsibility of everything. Sorry for the expression, but from cradle to grave. They have the complete responsibility for everything happening for the solution they're responsible for. That's a lot of competences. But what did Scrum actually say? This is directly from the Scrum Guide. It's important to remember that a developer is not necessarily a software developer. They can focus on any type of product work, whether software or not, and on all aspects of designing, building, testing, or delivering the product. The specific skills that the developers need are often broad and will vary depending on the type of work they do. So the developer in the development team is not necessarily a software developer. But then again, we are not a team of specialists. And why did I do like this? That's because back in the days, we were sort of I-shaped. We had our functional, our disciplinary skill. I'm a tester. I'm a test manager. I'm a developer. With the coming of Agile, we start talking about the T-shaped profile. Someone who still have a deep knowledge about something, but then also have a broader set of knowledge that can be used across different situations. Myself, for example, my deep is testing, obviously. But the thing is, I'm also a certified Scrum Master. I have done that role as well. I'm actually pretty good at writing requirements, supporting the PO in finding the right set of requirements. And I can also help the business in defining user stories and so forth if they need it. So I have a broad set of competences. But we don't stop there, because then came the pie-shaped. And here I don't mean the cake, I mean that symbol. So in that case, we now have two deep legs. So we had two deep competences. That's all good as well. Then I've heard about the M-shaped, then we're up to 3. And last year I heard the term a comb-shaped profile. And I had to stop and wonder, what type of comb are they talking about? Because this one, used for the fine Scandinavian hair, has a lot of teeth, but they are very, very short, meaning the competence is not very deep. Whereas this one is for another type of hair, not that many teeth, but each of them are longer. They have a deeper set of competences, but they have still more than traditionally. Why do I start rambling about combs and teas and pies? Because that is one of the reasons why we need the quality coach. Because very often we are standing in organizations that do not have the test profession present in the Agile teams. There's a need to help our Agile teams in becoming better when it comes to test and quality. And that's what I'll be diving into in the following. But what is a quality coach? I love this model. This is made by Anne-Marie Sherritt, and I attribute most of the work that I have here to Anne-Marie Sherritt, because she has done an amazing work in defining the role of the quality coach and many, many different sets of competences, tools, and disciplines that will help you in the role of a quality coach. So go check out her website if you need some inspiration. But what is this? So I don't expect you to be able to read all the small text here. There's a lot of different competences, and some are, you could say, generic for a role as a coach, no matter whether you are an Agile coach or you're a quality coach. And some are very specific for a quality coach. Let's take a couple of those. Coach on software testing practices. Being able to support your team in understanding what good and structured testing is. Understanding when is the right set, what is the right set, what is the right approach to testing. It is being able to distribute information about the test and the quality profession, the practices, by mentoring other people in their role. It is about providing advice if they need it, being on strategy, being on test techniques, being on dashboards and reporting. Whatever they need, you will be able to provide advice on request. But also helping them trial new tools, new techniques, new approaches. Even though some of these approaches and techniques might have been around for many years, for many organizations, they are new. That could be, for example, be things like behavior-driven development or test-driven development, which is even older. Or maybe it's just getting used to use test design techniques, or maybe even getting used to have your test in some kind of a tool and not in spreadsheets and Word documents and wiki pages. So you get some kind of structure and transparency. But also help your team figuring out how to visualize quality. And you as a quality coach should help by also being forward thinking and developing ways to visualize this, helping your team finding the right approach. With that also comes being able to explain how quality supports how quality supports your organization. What is quality in your organization? That's a discussion you need to be able to take with your stakeholders, with the stakeholders of the team, with your organization. And of course, being able to visualize information beyond the team. These are just a few of the competences that we need where the testing skill set is essential. But then, is it some kind of superwoman that I need to be? I don't think so. I think what type of quality coach I need to be is actually somewhat context dependent. Because that's sort of, you could say there are two major types of quality coaches. There's a technical quality coach who focuses on the technology, on being close to the code, being close to development. So that's the small, where the arrow on the left side points. Or you could be a product quality coach, focusing on supporting the product owner, the business in getting the foundation right, supporting the software, having the knowledge from the software tester to help on that. So not a technical set of skills. If I look at myself, I'm on the right side. I don't have any technical background whatsoever, but I have a background that can help me in terms of the product quality coach. But that's not a right or wrong. That's not just this is that type or it's that type. And Marie Sherritt illustrated it with this drawing back in 2022, and I actually like the visualization a lot. Because what we need to do as individuals is that we need to sit down and look at our context. What domain are we in? Is it pharma? Is it e-commerce? Is it finance? Is it telecom? Whatever. What kind of domain are we sitting in? What software development lifecycle are we using? Are we trying to be agile? Are we still sequential? Are we running some kind of hybrid? What platform? What's the technology? What's the maturity of our team and of our stakeholders? All these things will indicate to you where you should put the weight in terms of the competences that you need to be able to supply. So you need to take the drawing that Anne-Marie made and make it yours. You need to move the sliders and find your setup that matches your exact content, your context. But how can we help? As test professionals, moving to this role as quality coaches, what is it we can help with? We have to look at the term quality engineering that has become more and more essential over the last years. Quality engineering is about the team member and their stakeholders taking joint responsibility to continuously deliver IT system with the right quality at the right moment to the business people and the customers. So that means that our Agile teams need to have extended their set of competences. Because one thing is that we have a group of really good developers who follow a good set of coding standards and practices, who might even do TDD, who have a setup with continuous integration, continuous delivery, who might even do static analysis. But there are many other things they need to be able to do as well. A couple of examples are the quality measures that TMAP presents, talking about pair programming, actually talking about pairing in general, about reviewing, not only reviewing the code, but reviewing our features and our user stories to ensure that they are actually ready, that we understand what it is we need to deliver. Maybe establish the ability to do feature toggling, being able to do acceptance test-driven development or behavior-driven development to ensure early testing to support building quality and shift left. But also understanding that test design is much more than just taking an acceptance criteria and match it to a test case. There's much more to it. We have to teach and train our Agile teams to understand that there's much more than user stories, that the system doesn't just consist of a pile of user stories. There's much more to it. That's why I have put end-to-end testing here. Maybe we need to introduce root cause analysis to understand when we get critical bugs in production, what is it we can improve in our team to become better? And if the team haven't tried root cause analysis before, you should help them. So there are many different things, and I'll dive into this in the following. Because it all comes from some of the buzzwords over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, namely building quality, shift left. Because still in many organizations, in spite of them talking about being agile, they have a focus on test and quality assurance as something we do in retrospect. That's something we do right before we go into production with some UAT. We need to shift that mindset. And I do know that some of you are sitting in really mature agile team who already does this. But unfortunately, in many organizations, this is not the case. So we need to help them figuring out how can we move the thought about quality and quality assurance left in the development lifecycle. So there are some competencies we need to think about. We need to talk about how we build the quality in. We need to dive into the quality of the foundation on which we build our requirements. So that could be user stories, could be feature descriptions, whatever you do. We need to talk about knowledge about the profession of testing, that all the tools and the techniques and the mindset that comes with that profession. We need to talk about how to create a test strategy for an agile team, because that is now the team's responsibility. And not only creating the test strategy, but living, implementing, executing that strategy is the responsibility of the team. We need to talk about test automation. How do we make the best possible approach to test automation? And of course, we need to talk about the solution as a whole. We have to get out of the tunnel. More about that later. So we could start with a test strategy. What about risk-based testing? We need to have that dialogue in the team. How do we do risk-based testing? And risk-based testing is more than just talking about what is a quality risk. It's about implementing the right set of quality measures to mitigate those quality risks. And it's being able to be transparent to our stakeholders about how did we mitigate those quality risks. Traditionally, we had quality risk analysis or product risk analysis workshops that gave us the input for our strategy, but you could do it as an integrated part of the work in the team. For example, by doing risk poker. Risk poker being a part of your sprint planning. So before you start doing your poker planning to estimate, let's do a risk poker. Because we need to be sure that we have a common picture of the criticality and the complexity of what we're going to build, because that will seriously affect the amount of testing that we need to do, the amount of code review we need to do. As a quality coach, I need to support my team in figuring out, how do we get to talk about quality risk? Do we do risk poker? Do we do something else? How do we approach quality risks as a foundation for our test strategy? We need to figure out when we have that. So how do we then make a strategy from it? Again, this is a drawing from TMAP Next. So maybe we can do it in another way. Maybe we put the test strategy directly into the user story in Jira or in Azure DevOps or whatever tool you use. So that for each user story, we will write what is the strategy. But we need to talk about strategy. In order to be able to do that, we need to have an understanding of the different perspectives. That's why I chose to show the Agile testing quadrants. This is originally made by Brian Merrick, but I know it from the book Agile Testing from Janet Gregory and Lisa Crispin. And I love this drawing. This is by far my favorite drawing when I talk about Agile testing, because it visualizes why we need to think about different perspectives in testing. And as a quality coach, I will bring this drawing into the team. And we will have a discussion in our team about how we choose to address the different quadrants. The first quadrant that focuses on technology, that supports the team continuously by establishing a good set of unit of component tests that is a part of our CI. Or quadrant number 2, that focuses up against the business. Did we build the right system? Supporting the team continuously by automating a set of tests that will validate the acceptance criteria that we identified for our user stories. Or the third quadrant, where we now critique the product with the perspective of the business. Is it fit for purpose? This is where we do usability testing. This is here we do our user acceptance testing. We might have some end-to-end scenarios focusing on the business flows, facing the business. Did we build the right system? And last but not least, the fourth quadrant, where we have all the entities like security, reliability, availability, but also performance, load, stress. So all the non-functional aspects of our application. We need to talk about that. And that's often talking about the elephant in the room, because that is aspects that we tend to forget, because all our focus is on delivering the right set of functionality. So I need to introduce this to the team. I need to facilitate the initial discussion, and then I just need to help them using this in their daily work. And then there's the user stories. We tend to work in Agile on small pieces of work like user stories. And there are organizations that put individual user stories into production, but very often we package these as features, or maybe even package features as releases that comes out one in a quarter. It completely depends on the context of your company. That's not a right or a wrong here. It depends on the needs of your business. But as soon as we don't build small things in isolation that has business value in its own mean, and we put that into production, as soon as we start packaging, we have to remember that there is different perspectives here. We have to remember that we shouldn't get tunnel vision. I normally have a drawing of a horse with blinders on, because that is how I sometimes see the perspectives of testing in the Agile team if we are not aware. But we need to remember that bunch of user stories, we have tested those individually, but that does not mean that the feature as a whole works as we expected. So there are different perspectives that we need to look at. So we need to test each individual user story. We need to be sure that when we're done with all these user stories, the feature as a whole is okay. And that's not just by running all the unit tests that we have for all these user stories, because that's also a business perspective. There's acceptance criteria on that feature. Are those acceptance criteria now fulfilled? Is it fit for purpose? And we need to continuously ensure that we do regression testing. And we do that in our CI/CD pipeline. So we have a focus on our automation. This is good Agile testing practices, but it's not a normal thing for all Agile teams. As a quality coach, I need to help my team build the competences and the culture around this so that it comes natural for them, that they, of course, test the individual pieces, but also focuses on the whole. And then I said CI/CD. CI/CD is an essential part of the Agile team. If we want to be able to set things into production continuously, we need a pipeline that supports that. One of the challenges is that very often when I see in many companies, when I see the CI/CD pipeline being implemented, all focuses on the tooling. We need the tool set to be able to do this pipeline so that we can check in. We'll assume we check in, we will build it, and then we'll run our unit test, and then yada, 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 all the way through. And that's good. But the thing is, it says team test stage, and it says business test stage. And in order for those stages to exist, tests need to exist. So if you don't have any unit testing at all, you maybe only have 2 to 3% of coverage. That CI doesn't help much in terms of continuous knowledge about the quality of the code base. You will still not know. And the same goes for the business test stage. If all your testing of the individual user stories above unit and unit integration testing is manual, then it's not something you can do continuously. So we need to help our team, first of all, in getting the understanding that the CI/CD pipeline is not just about a tool set, but very much about a testing mindset. We need to coach them in getting that mindset in so that unit testing is a given. Of course, risk-based. We don't test everything with the same coverage because it depends on how critical it is. But that mindset has to be a part of what the developer do as his normal day work. We have to find a way, a technique, an approach to be able to automate the test of our acceptance criteria for the individual user stories so that we don't end up with a huge pile of manual testing. Maybe we need to support them doing a POC on ATDD or BDD and the tool set to support it. Maybe we need to help them in figuring out what is the right framework. How do we make good coding practices in our test automation? It's all about helping the team improving the way they work with their CI/CD pipeline. And that brings me to test automation, because good practice is to have a solid foundation of unit and unit integration testing. Maybe some acceptance testing, or a good solid as well, the middle layer here, acceptance test on API level. And then the top is focusing on business process, is a GUI automation. And there's a reason why it's on the top, because that's the smallest part, because that's what is most difficult and most maintenance requiring. And then we have the star on the top of the tree, we have the manual testing. But for many teams that goes into establishing the CI/CD pipeline, this is the pyramid. And I've even been optimistic on the unit testing here. In many teams, they are still struggling to get unit testing done and getting a good, solid strategy for unit testing. And it's not because developers don't want to do unit testing. Very often I hear that the unit testing is not done because they simply don't have time. The time pressure make them skip something, and the easiest thing to skip that the user do not immediately see is the unit testing. So we need to help them also advocating for having sufficient time to do good unit testing. And that's again a question about understanding what testing is and what value it brings to the team and to the business that we do this. And then, of course, designing test cases, introducing structured approaches to this. And this is actually really good for the PO as well, because if we start talking about the business process here and talking about what are the test cases we need for it, we also need to have a dialogue with the business to understand what is the business process? What are the workflows we need to have here? That's a really good foundation for a feature or some user stories. And then there's a technique for using them for testing. Let's teach our team to do this. Let's teach it to our POs. What about talking about the data? Now, this is a tax calculation. The thing is, if we start talking about it with a testing perspective in terms of we need to test all data combinations, we need to understand what are the combinations. So we need to understand what are the values, what are the equivalent partitions, the boundaries, and we need to do the data combination testing. Helping the team not starting to do maybe all combination of all, which in this case would be 6,720 test cases, but understanding what could be the right set depending on the risk. But again, this test technique helps also in defining all up front what are the data boundaries, what are the equivalence partition, what is the data set that we need to support. Or the business rules. This is by far my favorite test design technique, but it's also a part of the training as a business analyst. This is a part of BPMN. What this does is it visualizes business rules, and it's also a test design technique. If we teach our team to do this, if we teach our POs and our BAs doing this, one thing is that we have a really solid foundation for testing, but we actually have a solid foundation for building as well. And that's a part of the tools that I as a coach need to have. And there are many other things. Just like one of the buzzwords or the words that are really misused a lot is exploratory testing. Oh, but we do exploratory testing. But very often when you dive into what exploratory testing means then for them, it's actually ad hoc. It's not structured. It's not using critical thinking. It's not system thinking. They're not doing it session-based. They are not using really good techniques that are valuable in terms of exploratory testing. We can do it together with them. Let's make a bug hunt. Let's do pair testing. And then we had a challenge about explaining how quality supports the organization, or just explaining quality. And one place to start is to agree on what is quality, because that is a word we talk about a lot with our stakeholders in our organization. I like this one. Quality is value to some person at some time who matters. Comes originally from Jerry Weinberg, but has been extended by James Bach and Michael Bolton. And I like it because it focuses on value and it focuses on the person. And that brings us to the first principle in Agile. So we need to facilitate the dialogue about value and to get an understanding of what is the value that we pursue with the solution. This is a voice model coming from TMAP. And it's a really good foundation for having the dialogue about value, moving it forward into making those value definitions measurable, measuring with our indicators in our testing, and visualize that, making quality transparent, being able to communicate with our stakeholders about whether they get the value that they are actually pursuing. We can facilitate this dialogue. We can introduce it to our organization, to our team, to our project, whatever your context is. We need to be able to visualize. We need to help them create the dashboards, the reporting, whatever is needed. Not too much, not too little, just right. What do I mean? It's just like with the dashboards in the plane. Don't start doing the dashboard from the Airbus 380. That's not what we need. We need the right set of indicators on our quality, not too many. We will drown in indicators and will not be able to understand anyway and communicate about the quality. But we need to help our team and our stakeholders figuring out what is it we need to measure on. So I don't really think I need to be a superwoman, some kind of superhero. I think I need to be a very good craftsman, a professional who knows about my craft, who knows about my profession, who is able to bring that knowledge to my team, either with training, with mentoring, with coaching. Taking the right set of tools from the tool belt that I'm carrying to help my team being the best possible agile team, delivering value to our customers. And that's it, and that's that. So I would be more than happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Gitte. Well, I'd like to say that I think you're a craftswoman plus a superwoman, actually. So thank you very much for that. We're going to go straight into questions. I know that anybody who's watching that, please go back and read a little bit more, digest it again. So good. Let's get into these questions. So does the quality coach replace the test manager?
Yeah, that is what sometimes happens. But I actually think one doesn't, it's not either or. I think sometimes I have a role as a test manager, but I also have some quality coaching work that I need to do to help my team improve. Mm-hmm. In other cases, there will not be a test manager. There I will only be the coach. So I don't think it replaces it. I think we need to look at it again, as with other roles, we have a plate of competences and we need to pick the right one from the buffet to match our work. I don't think the quality coach replaces the test manager at all. Because I don't have, as a quality coach, I don't have a delivery. Mm-hmm. I don't have a responsibility for a delivery. I have the responsibility for coaching and training and mentoring a team to improve on their deliveries. Whereas as a test manager, I have the responsibility for a delivery, for being whatever relates to the communication about quality. Mm-hmm. So no.
Yeah, and really important to recognise the value in the quality coach role. Next question, Kenza. I'm watching the clock a little bit here. Is quality coaching a full-time role?
Yeah, I think I took a bit of it before, but I think it depends. I think in some contexts it will be. If you have a set of maybe a group of agile teams and they are all not too used of taking the full responsibility for quality, and now they're going to have that responsibility, so they're immature. That is definitely a full-time role.
Yeah.
And in other cases, it will be something you do besides being a test manager or besides being a tester, because it's not necessarily from test manager to coach. It could also be from tester to coach.
Thank you. One last question, please. Yeah. You've given a lot of insight into the test competencies needed. Yes, indeed. But what about the rest?
Yeah, there is a lot of other roles in there. I think you should dive into the model from Anne-Marie Sherritt showing it, because you need to have coaching skills. Of course, you can't be a coach without having coaching skills. You need to be able to do facilitation. You need to understand things like advocacy. You need to know how to do change management, because what we're doing here is a very large extent change management. Mm-hmm. We're changing culture, and that is not something we do easily from day to day. It's not giving someone a training course and then all is good. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of change management and understanding human nature and why people behave like they behave. So there's a lot of soft skills as well that is outside the testing profession. But I really recommend that you dive into the model and the drawing from Anne-Marie, because it mentions quite a lot of different competences that are good to have.
Thank you. There's a whole other presentation in that, I think.
Yeah.
We're hitting the top of the hour here, so we need to say thank you. And Gitte, really great stuff as always. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And a reminder to everybody, please go to Gitte's profile on the A4Q Summit website and give you a vote. So thank you very much, Gitte. See you soon.
See you.
Stay tuned, everyone, for the next session. Bye-bye. Bye.